All right, let's get started. People will be rolling in. As Luke mentioned earlier, anybody that's on, make sure that you're just muted so we don't get any background noise. If you've got questions, you can certainly type them into the chat portion, or you can certainly raise your hand or interject and unmute and ask a question. We want this to be interactive. We want this to be fun. Picking up speed and hitting the golf ball further, what could be more fun than that? So that's why we're here. So our team, as you can see, myself, Dr. Luke Benoit, and Sarah Iverson, we're all a part of RIP Golf, and we're here to talk speed, power, and distance. So the lead man, Luke, who's going to kind of be running the presentation, is a doctor. He has his PhD from the University of Minnesota and currently is at Interlochen Country Club. He's been the director of instruction there for 10 plus years.
8 now.
8?
Yep.
Hopefully you make it to 10.
Hopefully.
But so Luke's been a teaching pro for a long time, has a lot of great high school, college players, and he's the founder of RIP Golf. Sarah Iverson, who is our director of fitness and vice president of the company, is also a college golf advisor. And between Luke and her, they've probably got the best playing background of the three of us. Sarah was a 2-time individual state champ, and she played collegiately at Colorado State. Sarah's hopefully getting back into more competitive golf now. She just had her first child a couple of years back, so we're going to push her to hopefully play some more competitive golf. And then there's myself. As you can see, Luke's got 3 bullets. Sarah has 5. I only have 2. I'm just here for the comedic effect. I'm the CEO of RIP Golf, the director of speed, the title that Luke gave me. And I'm just the man behind the scenes. I do all the busy work and move rip sticks day in and day out. And yeah, so we're excited to have everyone on. Like we said, if you've got questions, feel free to reach out. We want to help you guys pick up as much speed as possible. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Luke, and I'll kind of jump in if there are questions or we have some quizzes down the road. So yeah, thanks everybody for coming on, and Luke, take it away.
All right. And Scotty's a humble guy. He is the best player of the group these days, and he's going to be the Minnesota PGA president here in a couple of years. So he's very involved at the section level, and just a really generous guy with his time. He set up a foundation up in northern Minnesota, Minnewaska area, to provide free golf to any kid that wants to take lessons up there for free. So unbelievable asset to have Scotty on our team as well. He's not just director of speed. Let's talk about this question right here. What does it take to develop a great golf swing? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And have good power. What we want is a repeatable, powerful golf swing. And I'm guessing you guys have noticed the trend that more and more teachers and more players are working on speed. And I'd almost call it the Bryce effect. Bryson DeChambeau, who added a bunch of speed in the last couple of years. And now I was watching the telecast on the Golf Sunday, and the average club head speed on tour is going up. And we're also seeing younger players hitting it farther, and that's giving an advantage to younger players. And a lot of it actually goes into the analytics of the game. So analytics is like a big word for saying the statistics tell us that hitting it farther makes you score better. And so we're seeing this trend in the game of essentially more speed. So that's kind of the big picture. That's what we're talking about it. And as somebody that coaches a lot of good high school players and college players and some pros, I know it really helps to hit it far. So that's kind of the background. And what we want to do tonight to make sure it's a fun thing for you guys is I want you to answer a couple quiz questions. So, you know, it'd be awesome to play on the PGA Tour, but not everybody really has that goal. And what I'm going to ask from you guys right now as a quiz is if you could just type in your answer, your response to this question. What are your goals? Because we want to kind of know where you're at, and this will help us really shape kind of content for where we're at going forward. So you can just type in, A, I know it's unlikely, but I'd like to play on tour. B, I'd like to play college golf. C, play high school golf, and just for fun. So you can type in the chat bar there, and we may come back to that at the end, because I think it's relevant to know where you're at, and it can help shape the discussion a little bit tonight. So let's move on. Next page. A really interesting question that we have is speed trainable, nature versus nurture? So we know that some people have a genetic advantage. If you're of West African heritage, you probably have more fast twitch muscles, and you may have an advantage in sprinting or explosive exercises. If you look at the 100-meter dash, there are, a few people that come from a non-West African background, but most of them have a West African background. So they have more fast twitch. Now, my question for you is, of these two body types, which one do you think is going to hit a golf ball farther? And I think the answer is pretty obvious. A golf swing takes how long? It's 1 second about. So what we need to do is be very explosive for 1 second to hit a golf ball far. And that really indicates how much we need to train, or how we should train. We should be training our fast twitch fibers and trying to hit the golf ball as far as we can. Now, is this something that's within your control? Like, let's say you just don't have fast twitch fibers to begin with. Well, here's the good news, is you can move some of those, what we call, muscle fibers from type 2A to type 2B, which means they can be more fast twitch if we train them right. And that's kind of the goal here, is we don't expect you all to have perfect genetics. And in fact, you can be any golfer, work on speed, and develop pretty good distance. But there are a lot to know about it. So here's Bryson, and you guys may have known, 3-4 years ago, this was him in college, but 3-4 years ago, he was club head speed, maybe 118, maybe 120 when he was getting after it. Now he's competing in the world long drive, and he's probably top 10 in the world long drive. And he put on crazy amount of distance, something like 40, 50 yards in a 6 months period, started eating crazy amounts of food, and he did these crazy speed training things. So you can put on some speed. Now, understand that you have to hit your kind of speed development window. So when you're 4 to 10 years old, there's certain things you can do to add speed, and those are doing explosive exercises. You don't need to lift heavy weights at these ages, but you need to learn to run fast and throw hard and hit a ball, maybe baseball, and move your body really well. So it's more about movement and explosive speed that way than it is like heavy lifting. As you move towards more kind of the preteen years, the same things apply, but you can start introducing more and more heavy lifting if you wanted to. And then the teenage years, this is where we start to, girls and boys both have more testosterone during these stages, and you can really put on a lot of muscle and speed. And as you get towards like this kind of, we call it the peak growth period during puberty and adolescence, that's when you can really start ramping up your speed, and you want to make sure you hit those speed windows. And that's where a lot of you guys are. If you're growing fast, now is the time to take speed very seriously, because your bones are actually growing faster than your ligaments and muscles. And so they're tighter. And that's a time when you can really add speed to whatever you want to do, whether you want to be a runner or a hitter, or a power lifter, whatever it is. This is critical. Once you're post age 18, and I'm going to pick on Scotty for a second, because Scotty played a little golf, but he was mostly a long distance runner. He didn't look quite like this guy.
I did not look like that guy.
No, but to some degrees, you and I, Scott, like we kind of missed some of our speed window by not training for speed as teenagers. And doesn't it feel like you're playing catch up a little bit? Certainly.
Yeah. As we get older, it's speed has gotten so much more important than, we were right around when Tiger came out, but now it's, everybody that comes out on tour, it's very difficult if you're a short hitter to make it. I mean, there's few and far between, not like it used to be 20, 25 years ago, for sure.
Yeah. So what you want to do is take advantage of the time you have. So here's kind of the recipe for speed. We talked about, changing your fast twitch muscles, or whatever muscle fibers you have, into fast twitch. And we're going to talk about the strength program to do that We're also going to talk about the mobility, and we're going to start out talking about mobility, which means another word for that is flexibility, but mobility is more about how your body can move. And Sarah's the expert on that, how you can move so that you can basically create the movement with the speed together. And then the last piece would be like what we call sequencing, and there's different kind of, we don't need to get into these too much, but the sequencing is making sure that your swing is efficient. So there's some people that apply a great amount of effort. And I would give a wrestler or somebody like a football player that is new to golf, they have a ton of effort, but they don't swing very fast. So they're fairly strong, but they don't hit it very far. And these people, from what I found, and I've now done hundreds and hundreds of people coming into the lab, I can train them to get really fast. I had a track guy here, really good track athlete. We came in hitting at about 240 yards, and I could tell that he wasn't swinging that hard because he was a little scared to hit it, to the right. And we got the face closed and we started adding speed, and we added literally 100 yards in about 3 months. It was unbelievable. And I had a professional hockey player, a guy that played for the Wild, and he added about 40 yards in a month too. So people that are very strong, we can teach them to swing fast. And so this is a fancy graph here that basically is looking at how strong you are on this axis. So the people over here are stronger. This person's very strong. And then on this axis is your club head speed. And you see the relationship is like really, really clear. So when somebody says to me that you don't need to be strong to hit it far, I tell you, it really, really helps. And there are some people, obviously, that can be above what you'd predict. So like this golfer, they're actually not that strong. We'd predict them to swing right around maybe 95 miles per hour, but they actually swing at 115. And our goal is to make you one of these outliers without compromising accuracy too much, to have you hit it really far and get above the line. Some of the people that are well below the line, they have often poor mobility, or they haven't done speed training to learn how to sequence their body parts right. Because if you learn how to fire using the ground and having your hips go, and then your shoulders, and then your hands and wrists at the end, you can hit it much further. So there's kind of two components. There's strength, mobility, what your body can do, and then turning it into speed. And that's what our company is basically based on, is how can we turn you into speed? And we care very much about making sure people do it safely without injury. Like that's part of our business plan, which is, I think, really key. We want to make sure you do it safely, but we want to make sure you can hit it hard. All right, so we're getting into it. I kind of think we set the table here. If you have any questions, feel free to fire away. So here's a question of how fast do you need to get? So for men, I think on the PGA Tour now, 115 miles per hour. Women, more like 95. Sarah, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you remember what your club head speed was when you were playing competitively?
I would guess just below that average 95. Speed training wasn't super important when I was, 14, 15 up to 18, which is, I think, why if you're younger than 18 right now, you have such an advantage, because how you mentioned, we kind of all missed our windows, right, for training for speed. So anyone on this call has such an advantage because you're still in that age. I think I was less than average.
Really? We're hitting at what, when you won the high school tournament, hitting at what, 250 off the tee? Or
yeah, 250.
Yeah. So probably close. I would say
But,
you were.
I mean, greater than average as far as distance.
Right.
But comparing that average to the LPGA, lower.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Scott, you're what, 110-ish?
Yeah, I'm on the low end of that tour. I'm not even to that average. I don't even know that I've ever gotten to that average.
Yeah.
And maybe when we were 18, 19, but that's a stretch. So
Right.
that just goes to show you that we kind of missed that speed window.
Right. And Scott is unique in that, he's my 4-ball partner. We played for years and years together. I played tons of golf with Scott. We grew up together. I've known him since we were about, 12 years old. Scott is a really efficient driver of the ball. So he hits up on the ball, and he might not swing that hard, but the spin is low and he hits it high. And so even though he swings at about maybe 108, it goes 300 yards. And so keep that in mind. Like there's a lot more to just, speed. We want to create speed. But this is where, if you have a good coach, you can really maximize what you have with impact dynamics as well. And that's why every year on the PGA Tour, you're going to find people that maybe don't kill it that can still compete. So let's talk about a couple of case studies here. Rory, when he got on tour, was 18 years old, didn't go to college, and he was swinging 110 miles per hour. And today, anybody know what he is? Probably 125. So, when he's getting after it. So he's improved his club head speed by 15 miles per hour from age 18 to what is he now? Almost 30 probably. So there's an example of somebody that's put on a crazy amount of speed, and it definitely helped his game. Nobody would probably say the driver is Rory's problem, right? He is a great driver of the golf ball. Bryson, we talked about a little bit before. Nelly Korda, anybody know how fast she swings? She can get it up to 100 miles an hour. So she's definitely faster than average on the LPGA Tour, and she can swing 100 miles an hour. And she's not a particularly super built person, but she's strong. I guarantee she's strong, and she does a lot of strength training as well. So whatever body type you have, we want to get stronger, but you can compete. And I don't know if anybody watched Jaco Neiman yesterday, but that guy is fairly skinny, 155 pounds, and he smashes it, right? So you can win that way. All right, so we're going to get into the strength, power, and mobility. We're going to talk next about the sequencing and creating a little more speed with what you have. So let's get into a little test of mobility. So the first test I'm going to have you do, and I'd love you to do this, is what we call the pelvic tilt. So pelvic tilt is how your spine works during the swing, and it can go this way, which is in, and I'm not real good at this. This is called an anterior tilt. And then this is called posterior. So I want you to get off your desk or off your couch and see if you can do this. These are called cats and cows, okay? Now, if you're having trouble kind of seeing this, get in front of a mirror and practice this. This is one of those things where if you can't do this move, it's something you can practice and work on. Scott, can you pass this test? There we go. There's anterior, there's posterior. So you got it. So being able to do this move, and the reason it's so important is because if you can have your back into extension, which is where there's a little cup there, it makes your swing a little longer. It keeps your head more on the golf ball as you go back. And then at impact, we have to have our spine rounded down here so that we don't pull our hamstring off. Because if you try to go into a cup spine, or what we call an S spine right here, it's really going to pull on your hamstring and leg. So that's why it's so important. So this could be one, if you had trouble doing that, or if you felt a little shake and bake when you did it, this would be something you'd want to add to your at-home mobility work. And this is something you do maybe morning and night a little bit just to make sure you can do it. Pelvic rotation. This one's another kind of important one, tricky one. What we're going to do is have our hips move like this. So our hips rotate, but you can see my shoulders aren't moving much. And you might see some people doing this. And the people that can't move their hips independent of their shoulders are probably really going to struggle with how they start their downswing. So this little move is really important. So you can keep a little scorecard as you go and see if you can do these.
So you'll notice, I'm going to jump in there, Luke. You'll notice how good Luke was at that one. That one is a really good indicator of if you can generate speed. And obviously, I mean, he's very good at teaching speed to all of his students. So this is a really important one to notice if you'll be able to generate speed in your golf swing.
Yeah, wouldn't you say that's the number one, Sarah?
I would, yep.
Yeah, so if you can.
I won't show mine because I'm terrible at the pelvic rotation.
I wasn't surprised that you could do that one really good, Luke.
Yeah, for me, hip speed was never a problem. It was more the direction for me. So, all right, let's talk about the next one here, torso rotation. So this one is just basically having your hips stable. So I'm on a chair, I'm trying to turn. Now, you should be able to get, this is your upper spine, what we call the thoracic spine, and be able to rotate well both ways. And most kids are fine with this. You'll notice if you had a professional golfer do this, they're going to get a lot more turn on their backswing than they would this way, because we don't train that side as much, but we like to be balanced. All right, deep overhead squat. This one's going to be trouble for me. I did a little workout this morning, so might have trouble getting there, but what we're trying to do is go hands behind the neck, and we got to have our feet square, which means straight out like this, and we're going to go all the way down into a squat position without our heels coming off the ground. So if your heels come off the ground, that's a fail. And what they found is that there's actually a research on this one that's really solid, is the people that fail that test will often stand up during their golf swing because they don't have the lower body flexibility, stay in posture at impact. So that's a really important one for what we call early extension, which means kind of moving out of it. All right, next one is the toe touch test. Let's see if you can touch your toes without bending your knees. And if you're a 14-year-old boy, this is probably a fail for a lot of you because you're right in the middle of your growth spurt and your bones are getting faster while your tendons are actually getting tighter. But it's important to be able to work on it. So you got to be able to touch your toes. Another one that would predict whether you come out of your shot. The 90-90 test, pretty simple. Stick your arm out like this and then rotate your shoulder back so that your hand's right here. And your ability to have your elbow go down as you swing is going to dictate your plane. So if your elbow is here as you start down, you're in trouble. Most kids have no trouble with this, but I will share this. Being able to throw a golf ball or a tennis ball or anything sidearm like this with this motion, with this elbow dropping in, is really predictive of speed. And that's essentially the move that we see almost every tour pro. They're really good at using this muscle called the tricep, dropping their elbow in and throwing sidearm. So if you can practice that throw, there are kids that come in, and I found this interesting thing. If, like, let's say I've got somebody that golfs right-handed but throws left-handed, over and over again, we see this elbow stuck behind them on the way down. And it often makes them a little steep in the downswing. So you should practice sidearm throws. It's a test I would do with every single junior I have if I have concerns about where that elbow is. If the elbow's in a good spot, I don't care. But that's—
Doctor.
Yes.
You sound a little winded. Are you getting a good workout in, or?
I guess so. Maybe I'm talking too much.
Do we have any questions right now as we're going through these? Any questions out there? Feel free to jump in.
I did see, was it Rex raised his hand? Rex, are you still there? Do you have a question for us?
If you have one, fire away. Just jump in.
Yep.
Otherwise,
by all means.
We'll just keep going here. All right. So those are some of the more important screens. Sorry, I'm going to get back to here. The single leg balance one, I don't care about at all, because single leg balance is not predictive of dynamic balance. It's just not. Dynamic is when we're swinging. Single leg, I think they're ready to get rid of it, in my opinion. This lat test, I don't worry about that at all with junior golfers unless they've had an injury. That's being able to get your arms up over your head. That's almost never a concern. Now we're moving on to lower quartile rotation, which means, can you have your hips turn? So they use a 6-iron on the ground and they try to turn your hips. And if you, one way to kind of test this would be basically, can you get your hips to rotate 90 degrees at impact with your foot turned out a little bit? Can you do it square? And if it's tight there, then you have some hip mobility concerns. This would be the number one problem I would see with males aged 30 to 60. It's such a problem. And if you can't do this, it's going to really limit your speed. So I work so much on hip rotation with a lot of the golfers I coach. Sarah, do you have any input on that one? Muted?
Similar to what you just said. I mean, yeah, hip mobility probably tends to be what we see as the number one deficiency. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, hip mobility, which also leads to the power, the deficiency in the power and the speed. So anytime we can figure out right away if, you know, how your hips move, and if we can increase that range of motion, that'll help your golf swing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, we're going to buzz through the next few here. Seated rotation, that's a lot like what we did with just the torso rotation. It's, can you rotate your chest both ways pretty well? We'd like to see that at least 60, 70 degrees both ways.
And maybe Luke, you should touch base on just the last two with the pelvic rotation at the beginning and the torso rotation at the beginning, is the disassociation between the two and why that's important.
Yeah. So when you start your downswing, I'm going to put grab a golf club here. So when you start your downswing, so on the backswing, both coil up, and you'll see the hips turn about halfway back and the shoulders turn about 90 degrees. In the downswing, there's this phase right here where the hips start leading and the shoulders don't catch up. The shoulders start catching up once you get to about here, then the hips start slowing down, and then the shoulders catch up, and at impact, there's a little difference, but there's not a huge difference between the two. But if you don't have the hips leading, if the hips can't go like this and lead, you won't create very much power. And this is where I get the football players in. They haven't worked on this move. They can't have their hips disassociate from the shoulders. They won't hit it very far. Now, what we find is that if we have speed training, we do ripstick, and they practice this move, a lot of times it'll start to work, especially if they have a lot of weight in the ripstick, because if you have a lot of weight and you're swinging something hard, well, that mass keeps your arms and hands back here as your hips start to lead, and you can create more separation between hips and shoulders. With a lot of really good junior golfers, you'll see a huge separation between the two, and then you can predict they're going to have awesome speed as they get older. So that's a really big predictor right there. All right, let's do bridge with leg extension. You can try this one. It's going to go like this. Stick a leg up. You can have your arms up. Make sure you're kind of flat there, and try the other leg. You got to go 10 seconds to pass that one. And if it feels like you can't do that, it means your butt is weak or your glutes are weak. Cervical rotation, not usually concerned with kids. Forearm rotation. Wrist hinge, this is called ulnar and radial deviation, making sure you can cock your wrists. And then do this one. The kids in our golf class warm-up, we do this drill a lot. We just hold the club out in front with our good grip, and we just do the alphabet, A, B, C, D. And so you're working all the wrist muscles and hand muscles. That's our warm-up. It's a great way to just make sure you can have your wrists do what they need to do. So that's it. Those are the important ones. You can see the hip mobility is probably the most important. All right, so the next phase we have is what we call our power phase, our power screen. And we do this three minute screen. And what we do is we grab an 8 pound medicine ball and we toss it this way. We do it overhead and we do a vertical jump. And then we have a hand strength thing to measure how strong your hands are. And together we get a 90% predictive measure on really how far you should hit a golf ball. And it's such a good tool because I can tell somebody, well, this is why you only hit as far as you do, or maybe this is a limitation you might have with your strength. And if you want to watch this video at some point, you can. I'm not going to go through it, but this is kind of the entire power test. And we had a great little example of how we did it. I'll just show you the first.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about speed today. We're up at Interlachen Country Club in Minnesota, and we're going to hang out with Luke Benoit and Scott McDonald. They made something called a ripstick, and we're going to do a few different tests, see how much speed we can gain, talk training in the off season. Let's get into it.
So that's on YouTube. You can check that out if you want to kind of go through the science of those 3 tests a little bit more. But let's move on. I don't want to take too much time on it. So it's time to do a study, you guys. You're going to be a part of a study. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. We're going to time you for 20 seconds. We're not going to do those 4 tests that I talked about. We're going to do 1 test and see how predictive this is, okay? So what I'm going to have you do is do a push-up with good form. And that means just make sure you get nice and low. I'm not looking for like any cheaters here. I want to have quality push-ups. I want to see how many you can do in 20 seconds. And typically, it'd be good to have a little warm-up, but I'm not worried about hurting anybody. If you got a big hockey game tomorrow, maybe you don't want to do this. But otherwise, why don't you just jump in and give it a try? Let's do 20 seconds, and we're going to see how many push-ups you can get. And then if you want to, You can share your data, how many push-ups you got on the 20-second test, and then your club head speed if you know it, or how far you hit it, okay?
Luke,
Now-
I can control the clock, and you and Sarah can do the push-ups too.
I was just going to challenge you, Scott.
I think you should do it, Scotty. I already did my push-ups this morning, but
All right, let me get down there. I'll see how many I can do.
okay, good deal.
You're not going to move the camera?
No, I'm going to be right here.
Okay, I'll trust you.
All right, everybody ready? Are you timing, Sarah? You want me to time? I'll time.
You got it?
I got it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, good form, everybody. Here we go. Ready, set, go. Keep that form solid. You're half done already. Doing great. And stop. All right, so type in your number of push-ups, and then I want to know your driver club head speed, or if you don't know that, your average drive. What we're gonna do, you look great, Scott.
I shouldn't have ate supper.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna do a little study on what we found with you guys, and we're gonna do an Instagram post on it and see if the data is any good at all. So this is how you can participate and study, okay? All right, so let's jump in now to talking about, we did their screening. We know we need mobility. We know we need strength. Let's talk about doing workouts, and I'm gonna have Sarah cover this. This is workouts for younger kids, because I know we might have some kids that are, maybe under age 13, and really puberty is the big differentiator of maybe how you should train. And there's a lot of information here. I'm gonna let Sarah kind of explain it how she would like to.
Yeah, so I mean, Luke touched on it a little bit when really most of it matters is what age you are, right? So, and he kind of touched on that at the beginning of the presentation, but this is specifically talking about younger kids. So, anywhere younger than like 13, maybe even like 10, somewhere in there, but always definitely want to warm up first. We have a warm up on our YouTube channel. You can look at that. But really any type of mobility, kind of a dynamic workout is what we're looking for. Speed training is obviously really important. We'd love for you to use the ripstick, any tool that you consistently use, that's going to be important. Luke has said this many times, if you swing something lighter, you get faster. If you swing something heavier, you get stronger. Pair the both together, and that's when you really see a lot of results. But kind of on that fourth bullet here, keep it fun. So how far can you throw that ball? How high can you jump? How fast can you run? Those type of things. That's what we're looking for when you're a younger kid right now. You don't have to worry too much about adding weights and heavy lifting and everything like that. Really just emphasizing, the proper form and everything like that. Again, generally, you don't have to worry too much about injuries, anything like that, or any deficiencies that your body maybe has, no physical limitations. So you see kind of on the bottom for any parents out there, again, just trying to keep it fun, doing something like we just did. How many push-ups can you do in 20 seconds? How many pull-ups can you do? How fast can you run to the end of the driveway and back? Something like that. Yeah, so I think we can move on to kind of the older kids, unless Luke, you have anything else for younger?
The one thing I would say is that I think strength training in this age is fine. I wouldn't push it to a crazy degree, but I think a lot of parents are really scared to do strength training. But a lot of that research goes back, and honestly, like Soviet research, where people were doing crazy amounts of training with kids, and that can cause growth plate damage if you do a crazy amount of training. If you did half an hour of strength training and the kids like it at age 8, 10, 12, I really don't think that's going to do any harm. And I think getting over that the mental frame, like, no, we don't want you doing powerlifting and doing Olympic lifting at age 10, but you can do strength training. A lot of people differentiate and they'll say do body weight's really great. Body weight's good, but I mean, is it that different than doing a dumbbell? I mean, if you're doing 2 20-pound dumbbells at age 12, is that any different than doing push-ups? No, it's less. So it's nothing magical about it. It's just that maybe you don't want to push it to like great number of sets and really low reps. That's kind of where it's at. But
I saw something just this morning too that said, I think sometimes the misinformation around strength training in younger kids is that it can stunt your growth.
Yeah.
And I saw something that said, like strength training when you're younger stunts your growth, just like, being a basketball player makes you tall. It's just not true, right? So we don't have to worry too much about that. And really the only difference, if we go to the next slide, is between the younger kids and kind of adolescence is the amount of reps you're doing. So when you're in your younger age, we can do, instead of doing a crazy amount of weight and low reps, you're doing, that 8 to 15 in the repetition range. Whereas, for adolescents, you want to keep the reps low, but the weight really high. So that's the main difference between younger kids and adolescents. And again, like you see a bullet point here is train to failure. We wouldn't have you do that when you're really young, but when you're in that adolescent range, when you're close to puberty, if not past it, you can start training to failure and things like that. And then another thing that I always implement with my students is that contrast training. So following up a heavy lift with an explosive movement. And that's really when you're going to see a lot of gains in your speed and your power because of those fast twitch muscles that Luke mentioned earlier.
Yeah. It's awesome. So one example of that would be like, let's say you did some really slow, heavy push-ups, or you did bench press. Then the next movement you did was med ball throw that's fast, or you do punching. So after I do bench press or push-ups at home, I always hit my punching bag. I got a punching bag at home, and I'm basically priming the entire muscle group, and then I go fast. And it's a really good way to work on speed. So whatever you're doing, think about that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I would also say is like, you don't have to get into this crazy routine. I mean, like it says here, 3 days per week is enough. 30, 45 minutes is enough. You guys are all active enough as it is. So you don't have to worry about any cardio. Just get right to that strength training. And all you need for that is 30, 45 minutes, 3 days a week. We'd love to see that.
Yeah. And just to counter that point, like TPI, the authority on fitness, says like zero cardio is what they're expecting out of PGA Tour players. Running does not help you perform on the golf course unless you're sprinting. So they're kind of adamant, keep it under 10 seconds for most of your explosive exercises, which is really hard to do. We did a 20-second and it felt like, maybe that was excessive. You know what I mean? 20-second push-ups. So some of this explosive stuff, it doesn't even feel like you're actually going to tire that much, but you're getting faster and stronger as you're doing it. So, and one other thing I would kind of emphasize is that if you are training heavy, so like, let's say you're doing bench press and you're going slow because like it's really heavy for you and you can only do 5 sets, that's still building fast twitch muscles. Anytime you go really heavy, that's building fast twitch, but you want to make sure that you're also doing the explosive as well. Match them up. All right, Sarah, you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yeah, and this is something I wish someone would have just like talked to me more when I was your guys' age, because I mean, if you're working hard in the gym and in off season with your swing coach and everything like that, and then you throw it all away because you're not getting enough sleep or eating really poorly, it's just not worth it then to be training really hard and everything like that. And I mean, the amount of sleep kids need, adolescents, younger kids, 10 plus hours, right? It's a lot of sleep that kids need. And same thing with the nutrition. I mean, if you're lifting heavy and everything like that, but you're not fueling those muscles to rebuild how they should be, again, it's just not worth it. So it's really important. You don't have to be perfect, but just continuing to work better, making those small changes will really add up.
Yeah. And I would say like one thing I see is like growing up eating patterns. Like you have to start getting over your pickiness. If you're a picky eater, like just grow up and start learning how to eat different foods and just try them, right? It's just about exposure. You need to eat healthy foods. You need to eat a lot, especially if you're growing fast. You need a crazy amount of calories, but it's time to stop being picky about food and realizing that if you try it, I mean, there's literally studies, there's hundreds of studies on this. If you try food 10, 20 times, you're going to start liking it or tolerating it, right? So just kind of realize that's part of growing up. It's like you got to get over it and be a good eater, right? It's important. So, all right, so let's talk now. We're going to talk about the swing. And so we talked about strength, mobility. We're going to give you guys a program at the end, a real specific program for building a workout. But let's talk about like how you can get faster with your swing. This is Kyle Berkshire. He just had a YouTube or an Instagram post, I think a couple days ago, with fastest ball speed ever. So this guy can hit it really far. I mean, I would guess if you asked him to hit one 400 yards for you, he could do it most of the time. So you can see there's a crazy amount of movement. It's a really long swing. And you see this great kind of pelvis mobility, like watch his hips go and watch how early they go. So he's getting high into that right leg, kicking that knee in. Then he fires that left knee and his hips are moving up and jumping and all that stuff, right? So that's what we hope you want to develop, is some of this. Now, you don't have to do all of that in your swing because he's playing a different sport than golf. He's playing long drive. In long drive, you don't care as much about accuracy as you do in real golf. So here's some examples of other golfers. Here's Tom Lehman. I don't know if you guys even know Tom Lehman, but Tom Lehman's, as far as I know, Minnesota's only world #1 player. And Tom Lehman's from Alexandria, Minnesota. And watch his slide. He's sliding his hips right through the shot. Now, Tom's an amazing ball striker. By modern fundamentals, he slides his hips way more than desired, and he doesn't create a whole lot of force pushing off his leg. His hips don't raise like a lot of people. Watch the left hip at impact. He doesn't push up. So this is one way to play golf. Most players like this will tend to hit it fairly straight, but not that far. But Tom is a really strong guy, and he still hit it pretty far. Hit a draw every single shot pretty much, and he was a great win player. So how you swing is more flexible than what a lot of people think. Like, you can find different ways to get power. And if we give somebody like Tom a ripstick, he's going to get more power. He's going to find power sources. And that's okay to do it your way, as long as you're coached and you make sure your fundamentals are okay with your path, plane, face, stuff like that, right? But just know that there's different ways to swing the club. And I think that's important when you get into speed training. Here's Jaco Niemann, great example of more like a turner. This guy, or a spinner, he like turns his hips really hard. He just won on the PGA Tour, finished yesterday. Watch how much his head drops. So we got some good players that will drop their head and they tend to shallow the plane, and they rotate really hard. They tend to hit down on it. They tend to be fairly accurate. So they have trouble hitting up on the ball sometimes. Let's talk about this player, Lexi Thompson. She is what we call like a launcher. So she's going to jump off her front foot a little bit more. Let's see if I can get the right frame here. So look at this. So see how she's jumping and kind of flipping it. And that's another way to play. And there's lots of men that do this too, like Bubba Watson plays this way too. So bottom line, there's different ways to play this game, and people will find speed in a way that works for them. And the coach's job is to make sure that it's not kind of what I call like cheating speed, or speed that makes you way less accurate. But that's the beauty of speed training. It's you'll find speed. Your body will find speed if you tell it to swing fast. And if you swing something lighter and something heavier, that's kind of the secret to the deal. So there's Lexi Thompson. All right, so why do we do it? Why do we speed train? The whole idea is training your body and mind to go faster. Your body's going to respond to the task it's asked to do. And it's particularly useful if your sequence is not very good. Like I talked about, the football players, the basketball players, the wrestlers that come to golf that are athletes that don't know how to swing fast. They'll pick up 50 to 100 yards a lot of times in the first couple months of speed training. They get really fast, but everybody benefits from it. And I think even those with good swings will do it. So on the PGA Tour, we've got 75 players doing it. Three of the last 4 major winners have used a ripstick. And we know that on the PGA Tour, they're using this in their workouts all the time. There's nothing new about it out there. We're just trying to convert some of the people over from other brands, because we know that 1 stick's more convenient than 3. But if all the tour players are doing it and they already have good sequences, it definitely works. We had Ian Poulter playing in the Ryder Cup, warming up with the ripstick on the range. He just bought it right off our website. If guys like that are doing that unsolicited, you know there's something there. And that's why I think it is worth using and playing. So, here's where the speed industry is at. I'd be curious if you guys have tried speed training before. You can just type yes or no in. Typically 15 to 25 yards in 2 months. The more you're a high level player and the better your sequence, typically the less speed you're going to gain. But at the same time, even if you can pick up 10 or 15 yards, that's well worth it. And if you wanted to do the test, like I talked about the medicine ball, we could kind of give you a better prediction. We had a gal, Betsy Kelly. Betsy Kelly won the state open last year. She's one of my students, and she went from 86 miles per hour up to now she's at 95 in about 8-9 months of speed training, improving her fitness a little bit as well. And she picked up enough distance to win the state open last year. So even for accomplished players, it really can help. And Betsy swings the ripstick more than anybody I know. I bet she swings it every day, like 50 times to 100 times. She's using it literally every day because she believes in it. And it's helped her game so much. So anyway, that's the idea. And there's lots of other brands. Like, honestly, like if you have super speed and you're doing if you're using it, it's a great product. The Stack's out there. There's other things. And yes, we sell the ripstick, but bottom line, we just want you to get faster. So just know that it really does help with speed and convert some of that strength. I've got a case study for you. Here's a kid I coach, Andrew Ramos. And Andrew is a really accomplished player. He's not a bragger at all, but I get to brag for him. He's, I think, top 10 in AJGA right now in his age group in the world. So he's a really good player from Minnesota. And so in 24 months, and Andrew always had a good sequence. He always had really explosive hips and rotation. His separation was unbelievable. So when he was probably 14 or so, or maybe 13-ish, his vertical was pretty good, not elite. He was kind of strong for his age, but he really hadn't put on a whole lot of speed, even though his sequence was really awesome. So you watch him on the range, you're like, wow, that's awesome, but doesn't go that far. And then he put on a bunch of strength, and now his club head speed's 118, and he's about 135 pounds. So pound for pound, he's like one of the longest players in the world. Vertical is great. I mean, he can touch the rim in basketball. I think he's 5'7" or 5'8". So he's a great athlete. Just a super quick little, this is from our Instagram, so it's a little corny, but you can watch it. 7-iron here. Idea. If you can develop that great hip speed and great kinematic sequence when you're young, and then you add strength on top of it, you're gonna hit it a mile. That's why I think speed training, even though a lot of people will say, well, wait until you're post-puberty before you start speed training. Like, I got my 6-year-old doing speed training right now because I want to make sure his sequence is awesome so that when he's strong, it goes a mile. So great.
Luke, we get the question a lot on Instagram and Facebook, like, is it more important to learn how to hit the ball straight first, or is it more important to learn how to hit the ball far first?
I think you have to do both at the same time. Like with Andrew, we got to a point where we just firmed up his wrists and we lost a little speed, but then we're always working on strength and speed with a good pattern. But you have to absolutely smash the ball if you want to be competitive at the next level, So like now Andrew's ball speed, he can get it into the mid 170s when he needs to. And so he can carry a bunker that's 300 if he has to. And that advantage is unbelievable on a golf course, especially as you get older and the golf courses get longer. If you're playing high school golf from 6,500, you really don't need to smash it to hit it to shoot even par. But if you're going to try to play from 7,200 in college, you have to hit it hard. So I would say never compromise too much on your speed, especially in the winter. There's one advantage of being in Minnesota in the winter is you get to work mechanics and speed for a 6-month period, for maybe a 5-month period. And you should take advantage of that. And if you haven't done that yet, now's the time. Like, you still have time to get after it. Yeah. All right, so here's a couple of rules of speed training. Intensity, like you're swinging as hard as you can every single time. You're better off doing less reps and swinging harder. And you may also want to think about swing thoughts as you do it, which is probably different than what some of our competitors. So for instance, like for me, I work on making sure my left wrist is fairly flat. I don't want to be cupped and steep on the way down, because I know if I do that, I hit it bad. So you can think about your swing when you're speed training. And the beautiful thing about that is you don't care where the golf ball goes, because there is no golf ball. It's a great chance to work on mechanics and speed together. So that's why I think like sometimes speed training gets a bad rap from an accuracy standpoint, but if you know what you're working on, it's going to work out. Make sure you have good rest time. Like, you don't want to be, you want your heart rate up a little bit, but you don't want to be winded. And some people just try to go too fast and they just pack their workout into 10 minutes. And I'd rather have you stretch it out. You know, you need to have rest time, because it's all about power output, which means like basically moving a mass with a great amount of force over a short period of time. And you need to rest so that your body is ready to do it. So make sure you rest enough. And then train with feedback. You know, use a radar or something if you're serious about it. We've got a radar, but there's a bunch of them that are good out there that can help you with speed training. So here's a sample of like what our speed training program would be. It's like you swing on your knees, you do what we call freezers or top downs. That's a good one to work on sequence. So you're gonna take it to the top like this. And if you're thinking about a move, like let's say you know you're too steep, well, stick a pool noodle or a chili whacker there and make sure you're shallowing it with that move. So you can think about your swing as you do it. And then you're going to do like we call a lead heel lift, which is probably the most important and powerful one you could do, which is just make sure your left heel or lead heel comes off the ground and smash it down as you start down. And we do everything righty and lefty. We've done a bunch of research on that. And it's really important that you swing both sides, because if you're like, when I started, my righty swing was like 110, my lefty swing was somewhere around 85. After doing a lot of bilateral training, now I can get my lefty swing up to about 106, 107, and my righty swing, I can get up to 118 if I need to. So once the lefty gets faster, the righty gets faster too. So that is a low-hanging fruit you should definitely exploit, is the bilateral training. Other thing you could do is kind of work on a swing floss. So we've got, like, let's say you're a slicer, go work on the setup. This chili whacker is amazing. You can set up some pool noodles, just make sure you're inside out. You know, we've got some of those plans as well on our website. All right, so now we're going to talk about the plan going forward. So remember when I asked you guys to talk about your goals or write those down. So let's make sure your goals are aligning with your practice. And I haven't looked at the chat. Sarah or Scott, have you guys looked at some of the responses to the goals?
Yeah, quite a few want to play college golf. Some want to play on the tour.
Yep.
I just want to play college golf because I never got to. But yeah, quite a few with pretty big goals.
Yeah. So here's what I'd say is you have to develop the habits you need to make your goals and your processes align. And it's all about creating those habits. So everybody knows they need to work out. Well, there's probably a lot of people that are listening tonight that don't have a good workout. And this thing right here is a pie crust. And what I would say is if you want to get good at this game, you know, like the whole thing is a big piece of pie, you got to eat the crust too. You got to do some of the work that is difficult. But if you turn it into a good routine and you support yourself with a good team, you can get better at it. And what you'll find out is that maybe at age 10, it's hard to have the discipline to go practice for an hour every day. I get it, right? It's hard to go work out for an hour a day. But if you build the right system and get in the right programs and get the right support system, you're going to build those daily habits and you're going to start to see results. And the results will fuel your motivation. And as you get older, it gets much easier to develop these kind of skills. And really, when you talk about it, this is called grit. And if you look at the psychology of exercise or achievement in anything, this is what it takes to succeed. So when I ask my kids to like get a plan together and stick to it and show me that they can do that over a period of time, and then as they get good at that, they ramp up the plan. What I'm asking him to do is get good at life. That's all it is. Because if you get good at this stuff, you're going to succeed at anything you want to do. And think about it like this. Golf is something you love, so this should be easier than school or some other things that are difficult. But there are parts of golf that are very difficult. So for some people, it's really hard to get your butt off the couch and go work out. So understand that's the crust. But if you want to play at a high level, if you want to play college golf, it's going to be kind of required. I had a conversation with a 9th grade kid today that, like, in the winter he plays hockey, and he's like, well, I just don't, I don't have a ton of time. Well, I have a kid I coach that plays hockey, plays JV hockey, and he just won most improved on his JV hockey team as a 10th grader, and he practices golf 20 hours a week, and he gets straight A's. So that kid has a totally different level of drive than a lot of kids, but I'm telling you, that's the sort of kid that's going to play on the PGA Tour more likely than the kid that says, I don't have time. So what I'm asking for, if you want to do this, is no excuses, right? Get a coach, get a team that helps you achieve, and realize that you can't just go from 0 to 60. It starts out at a younger age, and you get a plan and you build it up. Maybe you practice 2 hours a week. And then in 6 months, you go to 3 hours a week. And then pretty soon it's 5. And as you get older, you build and you build and build, and you get more motivated and you see some results, and it just gets easier and easier and easier. And pretty soon it's like you don't even realize all the work you did. It's like, every day you go to the golf course, you take one little grain of sand and you put it into a bucket. You just keep doing it. You just keep depositing it every single day. And then pretty soon you find you hit it 320 yards and you're one of the best players in the state. So that's how it takes. That's how it works. And I think it's really, really difficult. There's a great book here at the bottom called Atomic Habits, which I totally recommend. And I'd recommend, again, finding a great coach that can help you develop this, and make sure you use your parents really well as part of the process and help support you in the goals. If I could ask you, Sarah and Scott, like, did you feel like you guys had the support system growing up that helped you achieve what you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, I think so. But ultimately, the motor comes from within you.
Yeah.
Your parents, your coaches, your friends, they can motivate you and drive you, but ultimately it's got to come from you and inside you, and you really got to want to be better and you want to see progress. And I think Sarah, I won't speak for her, but that's, I still to this day have the motor inside me that I want to play better golf than I did last year.
Yeah.
And I'm an old man now. So, but what about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my parents were always very supportive, but they never had to push me to go practice or anything like that. Like you just said, Scott, that came, internally. And honestly, that came from me hating, to lose more than I liked winning. I hated losing, and that's ultimately what got me to practice and everything like that. And which is why I was very successful. So of course you have to have a good support system, but like Scott said, I mean, if someone's dragging you to the course every single day, your practice isn't going to be very productive. You have to want to be there.
Yeah. Sarah, I agree. I just hated losing to Luke all the time when we were growing up. That's why I wanted to get better.
And now you're finally better than me. I'm not done either. So no, it's great. It's good to be motivated, and it's good to have friends that motivate you to work hard and try to beat them, right? And you should cherish those people in your life that want to kick your butt and you want to kick their butt, because they're all making you better, and just embrace that. That's a good thing, I think. So.
And I will say too, Luke, I mean, you've touched on this a little bit, but like having that support system, but also like who are you competing against daily? Because I mean, anyone can go out and shoot 68 when it doesn't matter, right? But when you're practicing, making sure that you're competing every single day, so that when you do step on that first tee and it matters, you're used to that feeling, right? You don't get the nerves like you would if every day you went and played by yourself.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. And at the bottom here, I'm asking for a little feedback here from you guys. First thing, if you guys could follow up, we'll do a little Q&A right now. If you guys have any questions, fire away. You could write them in or you can voice them. But We'd love you to follow us on Instagram. We're trying to build our Instagram up. If you want a free workout, we'll send you a PDF of a workout that I think could be a great sort of intro for those that haven't done a lot of working out. It's 3 days, 30 minutes. Sarah designed it. It's really solid. And it's something you could do and just get a regular routine going. Again, we want to start out and bite off a little bit, make sure we can handle it, and then we can add a little more as we go.
Hey, Luke,
Yep.
we got a question.
Yep.
Let's see. Sean wants to know, will swing speeds vary between clubs, such as your wedge and driver?
Yes. Your driver will typically be maybe 18% faster than your 7-iron. So it goes up. Like my sand wedge is like maybe 85. My 7-iron's 90. And my driver's 113. That makes sense. So it's gonna go up as you get to the longer clubs, because longer clubs move faster, right? If it's really long, if I have a pencil this long and I swing it, it's not going real fast. If I have a pencil this long, it's much faster, right? Yeah. Any other questions in there?
Not right now.
Yeah. So
Fire away.
Last thing would be, get a plan with your parents, talk to them about it, and just say, parents, what can I do, or how can we help set up a plan that gets me to the goals I want? If I want to play college golf, let's not be naive about what that takes, and let's make sure we put in the effort and get the tournaments we need to. Find a coach that's really good for you. Get somebody to help you with the college process. Sarah's an unbelievable resource if you're looking for that. She can do that. But there's a lot of people that can help you along the way. Last thing would be is we're looking at doing more educational offerings, maybe do an Instagram live or with the Minnesota Junior PGA. So we'd love your feedback on what's the most interesting to you. You could write in these letters and you could rank them. Maybe you're interested in all 5 of these. Well, what order would be the most interesting to you? Or maybe you're just interested in one, just write that letter. And that can help shape us for maybe doing another one of these presentations going forward. So last thing would be, and I'll let you guys think about that. If you guys want to contact us, there's some emails. This is going to show up on the Minnesota PGA Junior website. So you can see this entire presentation if you want to do that, or you can just contact us. But if you want to get a ripstick, we'll give you 24 hours to get $30 off. Just use MNPGA, and we can get you a ripstick if you want to. But honestly, the big thing is let's get a good plan for working out and kind of setting your goals for the year, and making sure you have your team set and your facility as well. So, any other questions coming through?
No. Where can I find the PDF workout? That's Riley asked that. That's on our website. The PDF workout, we'll send that to them through Instagram, right?
Yep. So if they follow us on Instagram, send us a DM with your email address and I'll email it to them.
Perfect.
Yeah. So anyone that wants that workout, it's 3 days a week. It'll take you about 30 minutes to complete. Very little equipment is needed. Month long, has it planned out, mapped out for you for the month.
Yeah. And I looked at it, Sarah put it together. It's a nice variety of lower body and upper body, and speed training if you wanted to do that on the kind of the opposite days as well. But it's a good little workout. So big thing is to start getting a plan, and then you start ramping it up. And last thing I would advise is, you want to work out year round, but if you're doing tournaments, you just make sure you have a couple of days of rest or you're not sore. But I'll go back to Brooks Koepka. He won a major. I forget which one was at the PGA Championship or something. He was bench pressing 300 pounds the morning before he won on Sunday. So if you want to give me the excuse that you can't work out and play competitive golf, I'll call BS on that. You can work out and play competitive golf in the summer. You just got to know what your body can handle. You need to be able to get strong, right? It's important. Awesome. Well, you guys, I hope it wasn't too long or boring. We'd love your feedback about it. If you want to give us some criticism, last year we got some good constructive criticism to have a better output and to provide a workout. So we wanted to make sure we did do that for you. We're always open to feedback, and please let us know if we can help with anything. And there's some emails again if you want to shoot us an individual email. So have a great night, you guys. Any parting words, Scott or Sarah?
No, thanks. Thanks for coming on. And honestly, we're here to help. Feel free to shoot us an email, reach out on Instagram. We'll give free advice. We want to help you guys reach your goals. And that's what it's all about with us. So don't be afraid, and we're willing to help any way we can.
Yeah, very true.